And what's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning back to the channel today. I am Zach Davis, pastor of First Baptist Church in Mark Tree, Arkansas. Today I wanted to talk about if I could ask Jeff Durbin one question, what it would be and why. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. Also, my friend Travis, many of you guys watch his stuff that's posted on my channel. He is going to begin his own channel, and that'll be dropping, I think, on Wednesday. So I will attach the link down below. Click on it, subscribe to his page, and go and support everything that he's doing over there. Excited for um, what all he's going to be talking about just to continue and further the growth of those who are in this type of audience. All right, if I could ask Jeff Durbin one question, it would be this. If Matthew 24:3, the end of the age is 80-70, then why would the resurrection not occur in the first century? So Jeff Durbin and Apologia are some guys that I've learned a lot from, appreciative of their ministry, especially in eschatology stuff. They do a lot with abortion. This isn't a hate video, so whoever's watching this, I'm not trying to be uncharitable or anything like that. I just learned a good deal from them, but see some inconsistencies that I perceive and would love to hear Jeff explain Matthew 13 or even just kind of answer the question that I've posed. When you think about um, postmillennialism in the partial preterist sense, and remember, postmillennialism today is a little different than Puritan postmillennialism. So if you would have taken somebody like Edwards postmillennialism, he would have still held that there would be a future literal 1,000-year reign, to the best of my reading on Edwards and some of those Puritans. Today, you've got a little different flavor with what some folks do with the millennium, and by necessity, that's going to change some landmarks on the end of the age. Well, Jeff would place the end of the age in 80-70 in Matthew chapter 24:3. And one thing that I did with Apologia stuff is really just watch the Olivet Discourse, and I think it was Matthew 24:36, where I was kind of in a bind saying, okay, is this future or is this past? And Jeff really helped me get over the hump. I think that video, the one that includes the days of Noah stuff, I think it set the world record for most ads in one YouTube video. I don't know if Apologia did that or if YouTube did that, but I probably watched it 5 times still, even with all of the ads that were happening every couple minutes, just because it was so good. But I got to a point where I was saying, all right, if he's putting the end of the age in Matthew 24:3 and 80-70, then this resurrection has to occur in the first century. Matthew 13 and the parable of the wheat and tares, parable of the dragnet, those things occur also at the end of the age. How can I separate the end of the age in Matthew 24:3 from the end of the age in Hebrews 9, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, or Matthew chapter 13 specifically? And the reason Matthew 13 is so important, I think, to me, is because it deals with the resurrection. And this is when you're going to get into the nature versus timing discussion. Does timing dictate nature, or does nature indicate timing? Well, if the timing in the scripture is clear, then there's only one way that we can take the nature of certain events. And I think Daniel 12 is key in understanding the end of the age, especially if you place Matthew 24:3 at the end of the age. Now, to be fair, I've never heard Jeff, James White, Doug Wilson, never really heard these guys talk about Matthew chapter 13 and the parable of the wheat and tares, the harvest at the end of the age. There are partial preterist postmillennials that would try to place Matthew 13 at the end of the age, which would put a resurrection there, but I think would force you to be extremely inconsistent and still holding something else out to the future. But for this discussion, in our question, if Matthew 24:3 is the end of the age, why is the resurrection not at the end of the age? I think this goes back and centers around Daniel chapter 12. Think about what Jeff has done with the Olivet Discourse. He's taken those things, the time of tribulation that as bad as it was since the beginning of the world, however you take that, which I would take to be covenantal, and I believe they probably would too, and the abomination of desolation, and the great tribulation. Those things are in Daniel chapter 12, which in Matthew 24, Jeff has already given to 80-70. Now, here would become a subpoint to the question. Why or how could I split the things that are in Daniel chapter 12, some to 80-70 and some to the future? And the answer is that you can't. If we take Matthew 13 to be in our future, we have a problem because Matthew chapter 13 also quotes from Daniel chapter 12 when it talks about the righteous shining forth like the sun. So, if I've already placed the events of Daniel chapter 12 in Matthew 24 in 80-70, it's inconsistent for me to place other events of Daniel 12 in Matthew 13 in our future. Whichever I do with one, I have to do with the other. And I really think this is why people such as Ken Gentry will not put the end of the age in Matthew 24:3 in AD 70. He would still say that we're at the end of the age, that Paul said in 1 Corinthians 10, they were at the end of the age of 2,000 years ago, which presents its own self of other issues from someone such as Gentry, who takes all of the rest, I say all of the rest, a good number of the rest of the imminent language and puts it in the first century. So, if Matthew 24:3 is AD 70, Matthew 13 and the resurrection at the end of the age has to be AD 70. Well, the reason I believe people don't want to touch that is because you're going to get into the nature of the resurrection and exactly what that means. Well, that's a battle that I faced, and that's a battle that a lot of you guys are facing. So people are seeking consistency on these issues. And like I said, this isn't a hate video or an attempt to be uncharitable. It's just I'm seeking for answers because it's not, this isn't something that 4 people in the whole world are worried about, like it's being sold to you. As small as my ministry is and this YouTube channel is, I have people from all over the United States who reach out to me weekly, whether it's email, uh, physical mail, through Facebook Messenger, all of that type of stuff, and even people from other countries. I mean, I've talked to people in Europe, Canada, and Africa over the last month. So you start thinking about the questions that people have. They're looking for consistency on these issues. And, for somebody like Jeff, who's going to sign a letter against Gary DeMar, who's battling and wrestling these same things, which Gary DeMar came out and said that Matthew chapter 13 was uh, talking about the end of the age in the first century in one of his podcasts that he did, then it really does do harm, I think, to not address passages such as this. And if he's addressed it somewhere and I've missed it, then somebody send it to me, but I can't find it. Tag it down below, whatever, post it in the comments or email it to me. I would like to see it, because even if you could inconsistently try to hold a resurrection in the first century, like some people do, and place one in our future, which you're going to have to divide text all over the place, that I don't think is possible. That's at least the next step in the conversation to get some of these guys to say, all right, we've already put Daniel 12 in the first century. We have to put the resurrection of Daniel 12:2 also in the first century. And once we get there, then the conversation will continue. But until they're willing to do that, they're going to remain inconsistent on their view of the Olivet Discourse. Essentially, what's going to happen is you're going to have to scrap your partial preterist view of the first of Matthew 24, and you're going to have to put it in the future, or you're going to have to put it all in the past. Part of our ministry and what I try to do on this channel is to show either these things are in our future or in our past, but whatever they are, they're one coming and they're one event. And when you chop it up, man, it becomes mind Jenga to really the biblical text. And this gets back to the question, it's not about eschatology, it's about hermeneutics that affect the eschatology. So like and subscribe down below. Thanks for watching. I don't know if he'll ever answer this question or not. He's not obligated to answer anything I say. He has no idea who I am. But Jeff is somebody I think that is strong on his eschatology and opinionated on it. And if he could deal with Matthew 13, I think that would help further the conversation along. And maybe that would help further the conversation along for people such as Gary DeMar as well. God bless you. Take care, and we'll see you soon.